Good morning. This is Christy Turner, your Dementia Sherpa. And today I want to talk a little bit about sharing information with people outside your immediate circle. And maybe this is going to be helpful for sharing information inside your immediate circle too. So I have had recently several situations where clients are trying to figure out what to say, who to say it to, and it all comes down to there's been a change in their situation. So I made a little slideshow for you. I'm going to talk you through it. This is just going to be a quick video, but to help you get comfortable with what feels right for you in your particular situation and how you talk to other people about it. So if I can figure out how to share the screen, we're going to be cooking with fire. No problem. Let's do this. Boom. I think we're doing it. And if it's recording, even better. So, yes, sharing information about your person. Before you decide what you're going to share and who you're going to share it with, there are just some really good questions to ask yourself. Number one being, should you share? So, it depends, right? Depends on if you feel like that, if other people would benefit from the information. I always like to say begin with the end in mind. So if your goal is to make sure that your person is supported in the best way that others can do that, then sometimes sharing information is a good way to make sure you hit that goal, because we don't want other people to feel awkward or dumb or like they just really don't know what they're doing. So the better thing to do would be if they stopped interacting with you and your person. And often that is what happens when we have a family member with a dementia diagnosis. Their friends or more extended family that used to spend time with them start pulling away. And it's usually not because people are jerks, it's because they literally don't know what to do and they feel awkward. And so they just start pulling away. And we can help people through that. So, should you share? Yeah, let's say the answer is yes for our purposes today. Then we want to figure out how to share the information and what specifically to share. Now, there's a big difference between secrets and privacy, right? So, secrets usually involve shame, and there's nothing shameful about dementia diagnosis. So that's not a secret that needs to be kept. Privacy is a different story altogether. So just because someone has a dementia diagnosis doesn't mean that suddenly they want their life to become an open book, especially if historically they've been very private people. So we still want to respect and honor that. And certainly that doesn't mean you have to throw open the covers off of your life either. You still get to have privacy too. Remember, our overarching theme in this is to share information in a way and the type of information with people who have the goal of being supportive of both you and your loved one. And that should be a really good guideline for helping you discern what to share and who to share it with. And unfortunately, in life, sometimes we just encounter what I call nosy nosersons. These are people who seem to have lost their self-editing feature or maybe weren't born with one. They often ask inappropriate questions and say inappropriate things. And you probably know who I'm talking about, right? You probably know one of these people. And it can make you want to dive under a table when you make eye contact with them because you're just dreading what's going to come out of their mouth. So I give you 10 ways to manage that also. Okay, should you share? I think we kind of figured that the answer is probably yes. But if your person is, let's say, newly diagnosed and very early in the process and able to speak for themselves and make their wishes, needs, and desires known, a great thing to do is to ask them, to talk to them about it. Who would you like to involve in this information? Who can be most supportive of you? And sometimes people right after a diagnosis, I'd say often right after a diagnosis, people need some time to process, because it's a very serious diagnosis, and it it takes some time to wrap your head around that and the implications of it. So just because somebody says no straight out of the gate doesn't mean it's going to be no forever, but it might be a not right now. If your person is either been diagnosed later in the process, or they've had a significant change of condition and you're seeing more progression through the condition, or perhaps they're moving into memory care, you can always ask yourself, what would my person do? I mean, you are the expert on your person, you know them. So that should give you some guidelines as to how they probably would have handled a similar situation if they had been the one in charge. And we always want to ask ourselves, how will sharing this specific information be helpful to my person? Obviously, we want it to be supportive, right? So this is where you start to get more discerning about the types of information that you're sharing. So for example, let's say that your person just recently became incontinent. Now, how will sharing that information support your person? So if your person goes to a day program, for example, that's definitely information that needs to be shared with the team at the day program, so that they can know that your person is probably going to need some assistance in the bathroom, or maybe they need to be cued and reminded that it's time to go to the bathroom, or maybe they're going to need some assistance with freshening up. So that would be a very appropriate place to share information. Does that mean your neighbor needs to know? Nope, not at all. Pretty much nobody outside of anyone involved in personal care needs to know that information. So another way to look at it is to figure out like who's going to benefit if I do share this information. We always want the answer to be your person, right? 100% of the time. But also think about yourself. So as a primary care partner, you too need support, and you can often benefit from sharing information, let's say at a support group, or if you're working with a professional, right? Someone like me, or perhaps a placement consultant, um, certainly a primary care physician, nurse practitioner, any of the professionals involved in your situation are going to need more information rather than less. Elder law attorney, financial planner. But that doesn't mean that we all need exactly the same types of information. So for example, I certainly don't need to know the details of somebody's financial situation, but I do need to have a good general idea of the financial situation, because this is the example I always give, I can sell you on all the features and benefits of an Escalade, and an Escalade is amazing. But if your budget is really a Ford Focus, then I have wasted your time talking to you about an Escalade and maybe made you feel bad. It's just not helpful. So that's why I just need kind of a broad picture. Your elder law attorney does not necessarily need to know care details, right? More just a broad picture of where your person is in the process so that they can help plan appropriately for the future. Okay, and then why are you sharing? Because you're part of the Dementia Sherpa tribe, I have a feeling that you've got a good heart, right? You're going the extra mile. You want to make sure you're doing everything you can for your person. However, back in the day when I was facilitating about 5 support groups, there was a person who came to support. Actually, there was more than one, but I'm thinking of one particular person right now who came to a support group, and it was because she really needed attention. She felt like she was really sublimating herself in the care of her person and didn't feel like she really had any of her needs met. And so that's why she came to the support group. And she was what I call a hijacker. And sometimes support groups have hijackers where they want to dominate the entire conversation. They want to dominate the entire time and really make it about them. And it's not just about them in relation to their person and what's going on with their person. It's them in relation to the gardener, and them in relation to the book club, and them in relation to being a pet owner, and etc. You get the idea. So I don't think you're doing that, like I said, but that's something to just maybe double check sometimes. If you feel like you're starting to feel low and you're starting to feel like you have needs that aren't being met, look at that's a good signal to look at what those needs are and what are the best ways to meet them. Rather than maybe getting into a situation where you don't mean to, but you end up oversharing with someone, or in a situation where it's not the best idea, just because you need that release and to feel like your needs are being met. So, okay, next. Oh, and I do want to say this about support groups. By and large, they are wonderful. Like any other type of group, let's say a book club, they're going to be some where you walk in the door and you go, ha ha, my tribe, and it just resonates with you. And there are going to be other situations where you don't particularly care for the facilitator, or it's just, you just don't like the vibe in the room, or it seems like everybody in the group is at a very dramatically different part of the process than you are. You don't feel like you can relate. That can certainly happen, or you can end up in a room with a hijacker. That can happen, but this is very important. There are so many support groups out there. There are support groups online. Of course, there are support groups all over the place. There are support groups in hospitals. Pretty much every memory care community has a support group. So most places offer a support group one time a month, but you just look to, all the places that are convenient for you to go to. You could probably go to a support group a week easily. So if you go into one and it's not a good fit for you, just keep going. And you might want to give it more than one shot too. Like 3 is a good number to give you an idea for the true feel of the group. So I know that was kind of a little detour there, but I want to make sure that it didn't sound like I was anti-support group, because I'm certainly not. They're very helpful. Okay, so boom. Now I'm looking at the slide. Are you sharing with the right people? Yes, this really speaks to support groups. So a support group is a great time to share information, to get feedback, to get support for yourself. Somebody that you're close to, that you can trust, is also a good person to share with. Sometimes though, the hard truth is we can be very close to someone, but they just do not get it. They don't get what we're going through. They don't get the disease. For whatever reason, it's just flies over their head. So rather than continuing down that path and not getting your needs met and ending up really frustrated and sad and angry, just kind of take that person off your list of people you're going to share information with and replace with someone who is more able to be tuned into what you're saying and able to be supportive of you and your person. And sometimes, that's the case with family members, and that's okay. They're everybody has their thing that they're great at, and some people are fantastic with like hands-on work, right? So the yard needs to be done, boom, they're there, they're on it, fantastic. That does not mean that they're a great listener, that they're empathetic, that they can validate your feelings, right? Most people have multiple skills, but some people are just kind of missing one piece or the other. It's who they are. We love them anyway. We just want to make sure that we're not trying to put them in a role that is not a good fit for them. Okay, so when it comes to sharing information, let's think about how we do that. And a great acronym is THINK. And that stands for, when we're thinking about a specific piece of information that we're thinking of sharing, is it thoughtful? Like, the way I'm saying this, have I thought about this? Am I thinking it through? Or am I just blurting? And we want to stay away from blurting. Is it honest? Is it intelligent? Is it necessary to share this information? Is saying this necessary? Is it kind? Which, you know what I'm going to say about kind, right? That's one of our 5 key ingredients in the good stuff. So we always want to think about those things first, no pun intended, or maybe I did intend the pun, but think first and then share the information. And that, I think that's a good acronym to really help you remember kind of your framework for sharing. Boom, the good stuff. I told you it was coming. So we want to bring the good stuff, right? In every interaction with everyone. I always talk about it in relation to filling ourselves with the good stuff so that we can then share that with our person. But anywhere in life that we encounter another human being, when we're bringing the good stuff, those 5 key ingredients, respect, kindness, love, empathy, and compassion, we're going to have a much better result than we would if we weren't sharing the good stuff. So always bring the good stuff. Sometimes, because when we're right in the mix of the situation and trying to process, let's say, a brand new diagnosis or a significant change in condition, a lot of disease progression that feels like it kind of happened overnight, or our person is moving into memory care, obviously we're thinking about how it's impacting our person and how it's impacting us, right? However, we could be sharing that information with someone who is also very emotionally connected to us or to our person, and is going to feel thrown for a whammy and need a beat to kind of take that in. And so that's why it's so important that we bring the good stuff when we are conveying the information too. Watch your language. And I am not talking about F-bombs. I mean, if you're upset about something and you're throwing some F-bombs, I'm cool with it. I don't know if the people you're talking to are, but you know, it happens. So that's not what I'm talking about. What I am talking about is how we talk about dementia, how we talk about people living with dementia specifically. So, you know, I was a memory care director for years, and now I have my own business. But there was a year in between those two things where I worked in an elder law attorney's office, which was fantastic because that was a great experience and it allowed me to see another slice of the pie and how important it is to have an elder law attorney involved and able to plan for these things that wouldn't occur to you otherwise. So that's all great. However, he said something one day that I just, holy mackerel. Honestly, I wanted to smack him. I really did. And it was just, he said something very crude about being incontinent. And luckily, he said it to me rather than, you know, in front of anyone. And he was professional. He wouldn't have said that to a client. And he was being very honest in his feelings, I'll give him that, but it was very crude. And, you know, it's up to us not only to support and assist our person, but also as we're doing that, we are setting the tone for how others see dementia. And it's okay. We don't have to say that it's easy. We don't have to say that, you know, we don't struggle sometimes. We don't have to say that, you know, we feel upbeat all the time. We don't have to lie about it, but we don't have to use ugly language about it either. So There are a number of words I can think of off the top of my head, racial slurs, ethnic slurs, things like that, that are absolutely not acceptable, no matter what current events would lead you to believe. They're not acceptable. And when it comes to dementia, there are some ugly words involved with how we talk about dementia and some of the accompanying things that can happen with dementia. So just a little reminder that I know we didn't sign up to be educators, right? Well, I did, but you guys didn't sign up to be educators about dementia. And yet the reminder is that other people are watching you and looking to follow your lead. So when you can speak positively or speak in positive language, just about another human being, that's always going to be really beneficial. Okay, so another great way to share information is to write an email. I have to tell you, this is my favorite way to share information about dementia or a person living with dementia. So let's say that you are moving your person into a memory care community, writing an email to let everybody know is a great way to do that. Let's say the holidays are coming up and you need to let extended family know who haven't seen your person for like 6 months or a year, there have been some changes. Email is a great way to do that. Or there's a new diagnosis, and that's certainly not something you want to keep talking about at this point. It's hard to get through the conversation. Email is a great way to do that. The other really big positive thing about email is, number one, it's shared only with people you want to share the information with. Number two, you write it, you have a chance to just leave it in your draft folder, come back to it a few hours later or the next day, look at it again, read it aloud, check for tone, make sure you're saying what you want to say in the way that you want to say it. It really allows you to be thoughtful, and it allows you to convey information to more than one person all at the same time without hoping that you will emotionally be able to make it through the conversation. I certainly recommend email above Facebook. Facebook is not private. You can create a group, a private group, but if you don't feel like a Facebook Pro user, I just really would recommend keeping it off of Facebook and using email instead. Like I said, now you kind of are in the role of educator, and others are going to be looking to you to follow your lead. So you, for example, let's say the holidays are coming up, right? So you're not only going to share information about what the change in status is with your person, but you're also going to educate folks about what's going on and how that should be handled. In other words, you're going to guide them to success. So you don't have to become a walking Wikipedia about dementia, but it's good if you maybe have a few go-to resources where you can point folks. And you can certainly include this as part of an email, right? If you know of a resource that has, or you have a resource that has been really helpful to you, then that's a great thing to pass on. And you can just say something like, you know, I really have found the Alzheimer's Association website to be a wealth of information. And you can include a link, or maybe, hopefully, you'll say, you know, I got this great communication guide at dementiasherpa.com, and include the link there so that you're not in a position of being like the school teacher at the front of the room every time there's a family gathering or you run into someone at the Safeway, right? They can hear the resources. It's incumbent upon them to figure out what's going on in a way that will allow them to be supportive of both you and your person, but you can definitely point them in the right direction. Okay. Finally, I want to say about sharing information. Please give yourself a break, okay? Please understand, like, really, I know intellectually you understand it. Any of those situations I described, whether it's brand new diagnosis or a changing condition or moving into memory care, those are major life-changing events and they have an emotional impact on you. And so, two things. One, please bring the good stuff for yourself. You deserve respect, kindness, love, empathy, and compassion. You are worthy of it. So please turn that loose on yourself. And number two, hey, I'm right here on the other side of the screen. So I am always rooting for you. You can always reach out for support if you need to, okay? All right, now we're going to get a little lighter and talk about shutting down the nosy nosersons. So we all, as humans, have basically three responses to something unexpected, and that is fight, flight, or freeze. And if you're a fighter by nature, and that doesn't mean like, boom, you're going to punch somebody in the nose, although I guess you might, but it's usually going to be a verbal, like, you're going to pop right back, right? So the problem with that is that a lot of times natural born fighters feel remorse and regret later and wish that they had handled it a little bit differently. For those who are natural sprinters, like if somebody says something completely inappropriate or weird and they're like, bye, and they're gone like the Roadrunner. The problem is you have to keep doing that if you are going to see that same person more than once, right? And often afterwards, they feel more like, I probably should have, said something, but I didn't know what to say, so I took off. And then for natural born freezers like me, I have to say we have the advantage on this because when we don't see something coming, I call it standing there and drooling. We go, and so this is actually a great trait to have in situations with nosy nosersons, as well as in interacting with a person living with dementia, because sometimes they will do things that you don't expect. And this is why I don't get into arguments with people living with dementia, because, somebody might say, well, you can't keep me from driving. I'm going to grab those keys and go. And my response is, huh. And it's not that I necessarily mean to, but what I have found over the years is that my natural response intrigues people living with dementia. And so sometimes they'll forget about whatever it was that got them fired up because they're more curious about what's going on with me. Like, why am I saying that? Or why am I doing that? And so that can be handy too. But so now we have a little insight about how we naturally respond. We still have some options. And the great thing about this is there's more than one way to do it. I'm going to give you 10 options and you can practice those. And no matter what your natural response is, maybe you're going to find 1, 2, 3 that you like, and you can start adding those to your repertoire depending on the situation. The other great thing is that when we practice, obviously we get better, but also it gives us a little cellular memory. So the next time we are in a situation where somebody does or says something just weird, our brain isn't like wildly searching and coming up with fight or flight or freeze. It has some other options that we've gone through. So, okay, here are some ways to do this. So one example is my mom. Think of Christy's mom. My mom is so nice. Oh my God, she's so nice. And I know most people are like, oh no, my mom is really nice. Trust me. And I'm not saying it to be braggy. My mom is just really that nice. She is so nice that other people can't bear for her not to get her way. Like, oh my God, I feel sorry for people that work at insurance companies. truly, or any type of customer service job, when they're the person standing between her and what she wants, because they're not going to win. She will wear them down with nice. Kind of, it's the like kill them with kindness thing. So true story, actually, my mom lost her ID. And she was at the airport in Orlando when she realized she had lost her ID. She needed to catch her flight to come home to California. And guess what? She did. She caught her flight. They actually let her on the plane. They said she had to go to some special security area where the dogs were going to be. And my mom loves dogs, and dogs love my mom. And so, like, as soon as I was hearing this story, and she was like, and then they told me I got to go to a special area with dogs, I was like, oh, those poor people. So these dogs, of course, are supposed to be really tough guys, right? And they're on duty, and, you know, dogs are wagging their tail. And so my point being, when you bring that kind of energy, and that just super nice intensity, and just are coming at people like with that, like my mom did. Like, you know, most of us, the security says you're gonna have to go to this special area and the dogs are gonna check you out, and my mom's like, dogs? When you bring that to when somebody tries to throw a monkey wrench on you, it just completely diffuses the situation. And then you can go a lot of different directions. So if you can pull it off like my mom can, I wish I could, but I can't, then that's a great option. Option number 2 is, let's call it the Donald Trump. And I realize before I explain what that means, you could be thinking a lot of different things. So I'm going to tell you specifically what I mean. Donald Trump is very good at saying what he wants to say, period, and then repeating it. So it doesn't matter to him if you like what he says. It doesn't matter to him if what he says offends you. It doesn't matter to him. He has chosen what he's going to say, and he says it and says it and says it and says it and says it. And he's impervious to the feedback loop, right, of the reaction of the other person. He just shrugs it off. He has decided what he's going to say, and he just keeps saying it. And so this is also known as the broken record technique, but I think you're going to remember Donald Trump a lot easier than you will broken record, especially since we don't listen to records anymore, right? So the Donald Trump technique is a great one for dealing with a nosy noserson. They've asked you a completely inappropriate question. You have decided what your kind of party line is going to be when you get questions, and you're just going to keep repeating it. So they say, oh, so I heard that that Dave was just diagnosed, and he has dementia, so that's just terrible. And what are you going to do about it, right? And you can tell I'm being a nosy noserson right here, right? Because they're those kind of people where they're almost like rubbing their hands together with glee that something is happening. And so that nosy noserson comes up to you, throws that at you. And if you're doing a Donald Trump right back, you say, thank you so much for your concern. It means a lot. And they go, no, but really, what are you going to do? And you say, thank you so much for your concern. It means a lot. And they go, oh, did you not want to talk about it? And you say, thank you so much for your concern. It means a lot. So you just decide what your narrative is, you stick with it, you keep saying it. Okay, related to this is what I call the boomerang. And I'm going to drink some water because obviously I need it. So with the boomerang, somebody comes at you with, you know, all this concern, right? Or so-called concern, expressed concern over your particular situation. And they're asking super nosy questions. And so you just kind of boomerang it right back to them. Not that you're going to get nosy, because you're still going to be a good guy. But you're just going to say, oh gosh, I'm so glad I ran into you, because I've really been thinking about you and Dale and just wondering how you guys are doing. In fact, I think the last time we saw you, you just adopted that adorable little dog. How's that dog doing? You're just going to turn it around and focus on them. And the truth of the matter is, most people can't resist it. When you ask them about themselves, they're going to pick up that ball and run. They're going to keep talking to you, but they're going to pick up the ball and run. Okay. So the Jim Halpert expression is another one. That's pretty natural for freezers. Not all of us, but some of us, like me, do not have a poker face. So if you don't have a poker face, your face may be something like Jim's when somebody says something wildly inappropriate, where you can't help it. You're just like, your whole face is saying, whoops, I'm embarrassed for you. So that can be really effective, just the look on your face. And you just kind of let what they said hang out there in the air to that awkward silence. Your face is just doing the talking, and it's just getting increasingly more awkward. And, you know, most people are going to get it. Some people are a little thick and won't get it. But you can just let your face do the talking, and then pat them on the shoulder and say, good to see you, and keep walking, right? So always keep walking. That's always an option. Okay. If you feel like having a little fun, you can do the Cliff Clavin. And that is, oh my gosh, I heard that you just took Jamie in to get diagnosed and you thought it was dementia, but it's actually Alzheimer's. So what are you going to do? You just, again, you're going to answer how you feel like answering. But when you do the Cliff Clavin, what you're going to do is saying, you know, that's really a fascinating thing about the difference between dementia and Alzheimer's. A lot of people don't know that there is a difference. And in fact, Alzheimer's is the #1 leading cause of dementia, accounting for between 60 and 80% of all cases. Whereas just because somebody has dementia doesn't mean that they do have Alzheimer's. It could be a different kind of dementia. It could be vascular dementia. It could be dementia with Lewy bodies. It could be Parkinson's disease with dementia, which fascinatingly enough is also very closely related to dementia with Lewy bodies. Or, you know, it could be frontotemporal lobe. And there are so many different types of frontotemporal lobe dementia. There's behavioral variant, there's primary progressive aphasia, and then, you know, it breaks down into more subcategories. Usually by this point, they have turned and gone the other direction, or they have patted you on the shoulder and said, yeah, good to see you. So like I said, you know, whatever you're in the mood for, but pulling the Cliff Clavin, I mean, everything I just said was true, but usually people's eyes glaze over when that much information is presented that dryly and in that much time. So if you feel like amusing yourself, that's a good way to do it. Ann Landers. This is a classic response. So we call it the Ann Landers because of a reader who wrote to her however many bazillions of years ago, wanting to know, what do I do about a nosy noserson? And her answer was classic. She said, when they ask, you know, or throw out whatever the nosy thing is, you say, why do you ask? Isn't that great? You just, that's like a boomerang, right? Why do you ask? Just throws it right back on them. Oh, because I'm really concerned. Oh, thank you so much for your concern. We really appreciate it. That's it. I know a lot of times when people are asking us questions, we feel compelled to answer. We don't want to be rude or snarky. And you know what? We are not under any obligation to put up with nonsense, especially when people are crossing boundaries. So as a primary care partner, I feel like you have enough stress in your life. You don't need to deal with nosy nosersons and let them run roughshod over you. So why do you ask is a perfectly acceptable answer. Okay, the Queen of England. This is also one of my favorites because my gosh, look at her. She's going to run her own program. She's the queen, right? So she's got the nice little smile. She's perfectly lovely, but she's not going to put up with nonsense, and we all know it. We don't even have to be British to know it, right? We just know the Queen doesn't put up with nonsense, and she's unflappable. She's impervious. So bring out your inner Queen of England when people are doing something wildly inappropriate. You stick to your own program and do whatever you're going to do. So I guess you could say this is like the super high class, polished, polite version of the Donald Trump. Except with the Queen, you don't even have to say anything, right? You can just do it all with the facial expression. Okay, the Clint Eastwood is also great for people who are good with facial expressions. So just that steely look there in his eyes, that's all you need to convey. So that's like I consider that the like the non-verbal equivalent of why do you ask? Or you could layer some of these, right? So you could do the Ann Landers and say, why do you ask? But you could give it that Clint glint. Why do you ask? That conveys what you're trying to get at too. The Shirley MacLaine. So I should say the Shirley MacLaine from Terms of Endearment. This is when her daughter needed the pain medication and the nurse was late. And she had an epic meltdown at the nurse's station. She just was not having it. Now, that said, most of us don't want to have an epic meltdown when someone gets nosy with us. But there are those moments where it might be the perfect storm and you've had it up to here with everything, and it's just been one of those days where everything's rubbed you the wrong way and jumped up and down on your last nerve, and then Nosy Noserson, crosses your path and gets nosy, and you're done. And they get a Shirley MacLaine in response. So that's one way. Not the recommended way, but it will make an impression and probably stop somebody from doing it twice. And then this is my favorite way. So squirrel, meaning absurd non sequitur, right? Somebody's like, oh my gosh, so what's going on? So I heard this, I heard that. What are you going to do? You say anything else, right? It could literally be they're talking, they're asking all of this stuff, and you go, squirrel. Just change the subject, throw out an absurd non sequitur, and if you can make it funny, better yet, right? That's why I included this little squirrel meme. I thought it was hilarious. Having a sense of humor, as you know, as a dementia care partner, is crucial. It's going to take you a very long way and make every day better if you can have a sense of humor. If you're like me, having a sense of humor when somebody is being wildly inappropriate and up in your grill is challenging, to say the least. So again, practice makes us better at whatever we're practicing. So I hope that this has given you some ideas about sharing information and how to do it and who to share it with and what to share, and then how to shut down those nosy nosersons. I'm going to put some links in because it so happens that I have an email template that you can use that I did for the holiday guide, where it has an example of an email, and then it gives you the rationale next to it for why you're saying these things and kind of walks you through the whole process. So I will include that in a link. Oh, and another thing that might be handy for you is there are these cards. I can't remember what they're called now, but it's like business cards. I need more water and probably to stop talking. They're business card size, and it's for like a ticket agent or a server or checker, where it basically says, we need some extra patience here because my companion has a cognitive impairment. And so I'll include a link to that too, because that can be handy when you're out and about and not in a position necessarily to share information, because we always want to make sure that we're protecting the dignity of our person too. So I'll put both of those in the links. And then third link that I would include, just in case you need a reminder, is you can always schedule a complimentary call with me, because you need a strategy for a condition that lasts anywhere from 1 to 20 years. And when we know sometimes one moment feels like eternity, even a year, even just a year, is a very long time to wing it and not have a strategy. So again, that's complimentary. Happy to talk to you. And yeah, so I am wishing you a blessed and easy week ahead. Remember, I am always